Eventually it will break down. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to tell you that. Whether, if you happen to be listening and you've got a rain icon for early next week, don't trust it, is my advice.
A fifth heat wave this week as yellow health warnings have been issued across parts of the country. The latest hot spell comes after two record-breaking heat waves in June and July, which have fueled wildfires, drought. And now we learn from Southern Water a warning that car washes and swimming pools could face water bans. Well, let's speak to the meteorologist John Hammond. John, good morning.
Good morning, Rosie.
We started the programme by Stig introducing us all to the band Blind Melon with their song No Rain. No rain appears to be forecast, particularly in this part of England, in south of England. For how long, John?
Well, how's your weather app looking this morning, Rosie? I know yesterday we were playing the game of Hunt the Rain Symbol. All the rain symbols have disappeared off my weather app, but you may be looking at one and thinking, oh, it's going to rain next Monday. Well, don't trust it, would be my advice. Yes, the meteorological mono diet continues across the south and the east, isn't it? Funnily enough, I had a friend in the Yorkshire Dales, and he was rubbing it in yesterday. He showed me a picture of pouring rain, a lush green landscape. So there's a lot of variety across the UK, a stark contrast, as you may be aware, between the more northwestern parts of the UK, who have had plenty of rain over the last few days, and the barren southeast. And that general weather pattern continues. So as we go through this week, as you say, Rosie, that heat is going to build again. You might be wondering, why is it that the heat can spike so quickly, up into the 30s at the drop of a hat? Obviously, the globe is warming, the atmosphere is warming, the seas are warming, so the baseline is higher than it used to be. But the other factor, as we go through this summer and the ground becomes ever drier across continental Europe and the more southern and eastern parts of England and Wales, is that, dry ground heats up much, much more quickly than does moist ground, because if you've got moisture and lush vegetation, a lot of energy is required to evaporate that moisture. That energy is not being used up by that process, so all of that solar input is being transformed into heat, which heats the ground, which heats the air, which is why we're reaching 35 degrees yet again later on this week, just like that. And we are going to reach 35 degrees, I think, later on this week.
I think sometimes we assume, a storm will come to break the heat, but that's never happened.
Used to be the case, didn't it? There's a phrase, 2 or 3 fine days and then a thunderstorm and then it freshens up. The weather pattern is stuck more than it has been in the past, perhaps. We've got these domes of heat, one across Western Europe, as we're well aware. There's another one actually at the moment across the heart of North America, and there's another one across sort of Central Asia, and they're stuck around the Northern Hemisphere. When you get these big domes, they're kind of self-perpetuating, Rosie, because you've got that dry ground, the dry air above it, and so it's harder to break down. You've got this sort of huge, great dome of dry, stagnant, warm air. Eventually it will break down. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to tell you that. Whether, if you happen to be listening and you've got a rain icon for early next week, don't trust it, is my advice. There are indications, Rosie, I know I've been saying this for a while, there are indications that later on this month the weather pattern will begin to shift and that jet stream will start to push that heat dome out of the way. But at this range, you wouldn't trust it, certainly for the next week or so. For most of southern and eastern Britain, prepare for not a drop of rain. The National Drought Group, of course, are meeting later on today. Some parts of England are still not officially declared a drought, but I think that could well change. So watch this space for later on today.
Yeah, we're hearing this morning it's that another 16 million people could be living in areas under official drought status this week. And actually, John, what is happening is when we look at the water levels, the amount of water we've got in our reservoirs, we've got one water company saying they might have to extend and expand the hosepipe ban to businesses. That's impacting car washes, swimming pools, which feels sort of at really an extraordinary level. What companies say to you when they impose a hosepipe ban is they need a long, prolonged period of rain before they can lift it. When does it look like that might come?
We sure do. And the other thing we could do is build more reservoirs, but that's a whole nother story, isn't it? Because when we get all this rain, which we will inevitably get, it would be good to store it, wouldn't it? But there are indications that as we head into the autumn, the weather really will shift big time. And the computer models are very confident about this. And as we go into the autumn, we're going to flip into a much, much wetter period, and it could be a prolonged period. We're calling this weather whiplash, where in this new climate of ours, we're tending to lurch from a prolonged dry spell into a prolonged wet spell. And this looks like being the case into the autumn and early winter. One factor is the El Nino, which is developing. It's a very strong El Nino across the tropical Pacific. And there are teleconnections between what happens the other side of the world, would you believe, and what happens back here in Blighty. And it does look as if as that very, very strong El Nino, the warming of the tropical Pacific, as that develops later on this year to the extent which the computer models suggest it will, that is a recipe for a very wet autumn and into early winter. So be careful what you wish for, because this landscape could well change, and change an awful lot over the next few months.
John, thank you so much. John Hammond, the meteorologist.
There are some people, Rosie, at the minute in parts
they're
of
in the rain in Scotland.
Yeah, parts
they're
of Scotland.
trudging through Edinburgh, going to the Fringe Festival with their umbrellas.
And they're basically saying, stop moaning about it, you southeastern people. It's true that it's quite a lot of the country. I think it's like 20 million people now. So there's a fifth heat wave on its way for a lot of the country. Yellow health warnings have been issued for a big chunk of England particularly. How is the weather affecting people in different professions? We thought we'd find this out because some people, might be benefiting from this. Fergus Elias is a winemaker at Balfour Winery in Kent. He's been telling us how this summer's weather has impacted his grape harvest.
It has been the perfect summer for growing grapes. It's shaping up to be one of the best vintages I've ever worked. What's ridiculous is I said that about 12 months ago about the 2025 vintage, and here we are again. There is still time for it to go wrong. A big pile of rain in August and September would do it. But right now we're on for probably one of the earliest harvests ever, and probably one of the highest quality.
So good news for the winemakers. Harry Stadden is a blinds and shutters fitter from Tewkesbury. He's been telling us what impact the weather has had on him and his business.
The constant heat we've had comes with its pros and cons for the blind, shutter and curtain industry. We've had an endless amount of inquiries from people desperate to keep the heat out and stay nice and cool at home, which is obviously great for business. On the flip side of that, our lead time for certain products has increased due to suppliers struggling to keep up with the increased number of orders. And working for a small business that's only got 2 fitters, we're working long hours to keep on top of everything. Being one of those fitters, I'd say the toughest element of the heat wave for me personally has been just working in the windows, because there's no shade when you're the one fitting it.
That's a good point. Are you one of these people who are quite clever, and do you get up early in the morning, close the shutters and leave a window open and then close it at the right time?
But we've all surely now got very meticulous plans on how to handle the heat.
What do you do?
So curtains closed, doors open, but I've got a little balcony, so there's no kind of security issues. So the door is open to the balcony, but a curtain's closed in front of it.
So the cool air sort of gets there.
Yes, and then the hot never gets in, hopefully.
Ollie McStorrer is a brilliant name for a professional golfer and golf coach. How's he affected by the weather?
I've had a few tournaments be cancelled this year. This was back when we had a few threat to life warnings issued. Very, very firm, dry. It actually becomes unplayable. Just the game of golf becomes unplayable. So trying to upgrade the irrigation systems to keep more moisture on the golf course can be incredibly expensive, sometimes over £1 million, which most golf clubs can't afford. It's not necessarily all negative. Being part of the PGA, Professional Golfers Association, it was only recently, a few months ago, we weren't allowed to wear shorts in tournaments, but thankfully we are now.
That sounds like a small blessing. If you've got £1 million cost to keep the grass looking nice, but you can do it in your shorts.
I watched some old people playing bowls yesterday.
In shorts?
They were in shorts, actually. The ground was unbelievably green. Like the bowling green was green. Are they allowed? I think
they must have an exemption.
Should bowls clubs have an exemption?
It's a business, I guess.
I tell you, it's just, it was very nice for them. They're having a lovely time.
You can't hide if you're using your hose pipe. It's just, your eyes can see straight away.
It was a lush green thing we were supporting. Okay. They seemed quite supportive. My daughter's late, so we went and watched some bowls. It doesn't get a lot more sad than that, does it?
I think that sounds very charming. Holly Lockley is a livestock medicine specialist who farms at home with her partner in Worcestershire.
Things are just reaching breaking point because of this unrelenting drought, the lack of rain, There's zero grass left in the fields. We've now had to start digging into our precious winter fodder, which we shouldn't have had to touch for another 8 weeks at least. We've been doing that for 4 weeks already. And on top of them having absolutely nothing to eat, the hot, still weather has allowed midges to spread blue tongue disease across the country at a really terrifying rate. So not only are we really struggling being able to provide food for our animals, our herds and flocks are also sitting ducks to a deadly virus. So it really is serious and it really is terrifying.
Oh, that's a very different matter. I have noticed more flies this year. Have you noticed that?
So have I.
A fly in the kitchen is disproportionately annoying. Are we moaning too much? Clearly, Holly's not moaning too much because she knows what she's talking about, and that's a very specific thing. A couple of people got in touch this morning, Rosie, to say, first proper summer in years, what are you moaning about? Is there a bit of that? Any part of you? Because you're one of the cheeriest people I know. Can you see that side of things?
There are definitely positives. Not having to go out with your coat, being able to wear nice summer dresses, all of that. I do think it's pretty bleak. You know, if you're going out and sitting in the park or want to play football or whatever you're doing, and you just think the ground is horrible. It's the school summer holidays. It would be so nice to kind of go and play in the park, and that is all just so horrible and arid and dry and so dusty. And I think it just makes you feel worried because we look at the wildfires in Spain and in France, and there is part of me that thinks, and we've obviously had some here in the UK and the Cairngorms as well, and you think, gosh, in 20 years, is that going to be the story of our holidays?
It's also, I know I'm a monotonous person and people can make jokes about that, particularly in my diet. It's the monotony of the weather. I always thought that living in the Mediterranean would be like this, but you know, the beauty of Britain used to be that you'd have 4 seasons in one day, and you know, you'd have a couple of warm days, then you'd have it cold for a bit and all of that stuff. And actually, when I went to Iceland this year, it was really like that. It was like an old English summer, but it was actually like an old English autumn. It was, you know, it rained a couple of days and then it was 16 degrees and sunny and everyone felt really good, and then it was a bit colder again. And we just have this...
Relentless.
It's a hairdryer. We've had a hairdryer summer, haven't we?
That's a very good description,
and
yes.
And I'm sick of it.